This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agner.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. My name is Jay Agner. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Joel Montvelisky. He's the co-founder and chief product officer at PractiTest. Special early morning episode here on the First Customer because Joel is calling in from Israel. Joel, how are you, buddy?
Hey, Jay. Actually, pretty proud of you, man. You managed to say my last name correctly.
I tried.
In itself, that's already half the show.
I was saying before this, known about PractiTest forever. You know, you guys have done a great job kind of penetrating the space here in the United States. I mean, for years and years in QA, I've heard about you guys. I met Noah, who was your chief marketing officer years ago. We meet monthly. One of my just favorite human beings on earth. And finally got you on the show. So it's just a great kind of roundabout. The only thing was you did bring up the fact you're a Cowboys fan, which I can't for the life of me understand. Oh, God, get that away. Just crush that cup. Why are you... Well, of course I do. I'm in Philadelphia. This is not. I should be having my stuff here. Why are you an Eagles? Or why are you a Cowboys fan?
Well, man, long story short, I'm actually in Israel, though. I am a recovering Costa Rican. I was born and raised in Costa Rica. I actually got here when I was 21. And there was a time where my father was studying medicine in Mexico. And in Mexico City, they have like all these TV coming from Texas and the South. And every single Sunday, but that's way back in the 70s, late 70s, they had every single Sunday, they had Cowboys games. So you're 3, 4, 5 years old, you see Cowboys games all the time, then you become a Cowboy fan. So I've been a Cowboy fan, not a new one. I've been following the Cowboys ever since the White Brothers, Tony Dorsett, like the real thing.
So you put in your time and seen some shitty football, and
Oh, come on.
It's fine. Look, I met recently.
Ups and downs, man. Ups and downs.
Look, I mean, I would say there's just ups and then lots of downs. But anyway, it's fine. It's okay. We won't go there today. All right. So you mentioned where you grew up. Did growing up in Costa Rica or in Israel, did that have any impact on you being an entrepreneur?
I think that the way that I grew up in Costa Rica actually made me an entrepreneur because my family had two kinds of people. Those who were doctors and those who had like businesses in themselves. And even though I did study pre-med for about a year and a half, I realized I didn't want to be a doctor. So I went and started helping my family and their businesses. So when I started working here in Israel in testing, I did wanted to have that experience to try to make it on my own. Okay, so it was kind of an idea. And that's actually how we got to PractiTest because of that, bucket list thing. Let's try to make it on our own.
All right. Well, I mean, you've been testing since the 90s before most people even knew QA was a career. And I still find it like I still come across people that go like, wow, QA is still a job. Like even in 2025, like people don't know that QA is an actual profession. Was there like a specific project or something early on where you're like, there's got to be a better way to do this? I got to do testing, or did you just kind of fall into the career? How did you get into it?
Well, I was studying in college here in Israel, and my roommate's boyfriend came to visit him, and his cousin came to visit him. They're like, hey, I have a startup, and it was 1998. So I have a startup, and I'm looking for a tester, and I was interviewing at that point in order to be a bartender. And I asked him, okay, how much do you pay? And it was about $3 more than an hour than bartending. And I said, do I have a chair? I said, yeah, that's it. I was sold. So got into it as a student. Basically, I was doing it 3 times a week. But I got hooked. I found the discovery part of it very amazing. And that startup itself, I started as, I think, employee number 7. When I left about 2 years later, we were about 60 people. And I was already managing about 20 people in the QA. So it was a nice journey, but it was by accident. I'm one of those accidental testers. I didn't plan it. So much so that for my first, I think, 3-4 years, I wanted to get out of testing and I wanted to move into product management more than anything else until I really understood what testing was about. And when I really understood what testing was about, it's not about finding bugs. It's really about how can we improve the release process? How can we make a better product for our customers? That's when I got hooked, and I just stayed.
Yeah, so many questions there. But did you what describe before and after kind of the dot com explosion and bubble? Did QA change at all? Was it more like, oh my God, we gotta get stuff out, everything's growing, it's like exploding, it's like this big thing, we gotta get it. And then, oh my God, the bottom falls out of the entire ecosystem. Did anything change for you QA wise during that period?
Yeah, and I'm not sure that I can talk for everyone, but I can talk for myself and a lot of people that I was working in the same ecosystem with. And I think that back in the late 90s, most of the people doing QA, either they were working on startups, and we're talking here about the first .com bubble, like
Mm-hmm.
pets.com. I remember working in Silicon Valley that was like pets.com, and no one could realize that you could buy dog food on the internet. Yeah, what for? How? Why would you do that? But anyway, so a
Right.
lot of us working there, or you were testing for the Y2K bug. And the Y2K bug came and went, and either it was never a thing or we did a pretty good job because there was not a catastrophe, the world didn't fall. And then a lot of people started saying, okay, so that's done. What do we do? And
Mm-hmm.
at least for me, it was kind of a discovery. Is it a profession? Is it not a profession? If it is a profession, what it is for. So there was a lot of discovery around how can we become professional testers? Because again, testing was not a profession. We're talking here before the
Mm-hmm.
SDKD and stuff like that. And as I said, it took a while. And I think that my flux capacitor moment, that realization, yeah, I'm dating myself, I know. It was when I went to my first conference. I think it was a Star East conference. And I realized that there were people for whom testing was a real thing, was a profession. They had ideas and methodologies and ways of doing stuff. And that's where I said, okay, I need to read more, I need to learn more. And that's when I actually started getting into it. And once I realized what it was, then it changed my whole perspective. And instead of being, let's find the bugs, it became, let's do risk analysis and let's work
Mm-hmm.
on test planning and stuff that today you wouldn't do because working Agile is a completely different ballgame. DevOps is even more exciting, I think. But it is when we realized that, yeah, testing was a real thing.
Why are there no QA colleges? Or like everybody asks, and I'm sure you get this question all day, every day, just like I do. It's like, how do I get into QA? And I always say the same thing, like, I don't know. Everybody ends up here by accident for the most part. Why is there no
Um,
formal
so
education for it?
So Israel, I think that it's a little bit different. Europe also, but Israel specifically is a little bit different because there's a lot of people who are learning QA in like community colleges where you do like a
Hmm.
1 year training course that has an internship and then you go out into the field. It used to be the case that QA was done by computer science studies or engineering studies. I majored in industrial engineering. That's why I got into QA because I was an engineer.
Hmm.
But there are institutions that are teaching people testing, not so much QA, I think. I don't have a real answer for that. I think that for a lot of us, it's either something that you fall into and that becomes more a vocation and then a profession. But there are some training courses right now, and I see more and more people who, in order to get into QA, because they didn't go in computer science or engineering, then they go through these courses and they enter that. There are still some people who get into QA as a stepping stone into development. Nothing against them. I know a lot of good developers that used to be good testers. I think that the best developers used to be good testers before. But it's a good question. Why don't we have it? Do you really need a 3 year or 4 year education in order to be a
Right.
good tester? I'm not sure,
Yeah. Yeah. I
but
don't think so.
you do need something. Again, you need to think about that a little bit more.
Yeah, no, but I think it's because it's, in my opinion on this, is that QA is still kind of a second class citizen as much as we've progressed. I mean, you and I have been testing for a long time. You've been doing a little bit longer, but I mean, it used to be very much a us versus them. There was literally physical walls between development and QA where, like, people would be pissed off if you put in a bug that, was something that they did. I think that has made a lot of progress. I feel like developers, especially as who develops these software products becomes more public and more like people don't want their name out there on some shitty product, right? So I think, at least from my perspective, our teams, our interactions with development has improved over those years. But my thought about why there's no QA schools is it's almost like a fallback, right? It's like you want to be a product guy because you build these cool, sexy products. You want to be an engineer because you get to go code and do these fun things. And it's like, well, I can't or don't want to do either one of those things. I guess I'll do QA. It feels like somebody that wants to be in the SDLC or in the software development process, but there's just not a great on ramp for them because it's not the sexy thing to do. It's kind of a second class citizen. Maybe we should change that. Maybe we'll make our the first QA, 1 year
University.
college. I love that. Let's do that. All right. What was the spark that made you start PractiTest? Was it frustration, opportunity, curiosity? Why did you start
I
PractiTest?
think a little bit of both. Back in the day, I used to work for Mercury Interactive. And again, as a tester, I was a tester already, had worked in 3 places, I think. And I got an interview to be the test manager for test director back in the day. And it was amazing. It was like, wow, I don't know. Am I even qualified to do that? Apparently I was. So I worked in Mercury. I was test again manager for test director. We turned it into quality center back in the day. We're talking early 2000s. Then I switched over to QTP, WinRunner, XRunner, BPT, all the ones in there. And what happened was the company was acquired by HP. And a lot of us didn't like the culture change. And we decided to
Mm,
take a break. Again, Mercury was an amazing company. I still find a lot of people who work there, it's like a Mercury family. But HP wasn't like that. Again, nothing against them, just didn't meet
mhm,
my approach. I took a year to do a little bit of consulting, testing consulting, stuff like that. And we realized that there were two type of back then there were two type of organizations: those who work with quality center, a little bit of Microsoft tools, and those working spreadsheets, because there was nothing in the middle.
mhm,
And I got together with people who I knew from a previous startup we had worked with, and I said, hey guys, why don't we do it? And we
hmm,
learned about it, and we started as a kind of an internal project. We didn't raise any capital. We just started working on the application, and it caught on, and it was amazing. But it was, I told myself, as I told you, I wanted to try something. And when I saw the opportunity to do it on testing, and I had a group of people who I knew also wanted to do something on their own, all the stars aligned, and we just tried it. But as I told myself, I was willing to say, hey, I tried. If it doesn't work out, nothing happened. I can go back and continue doing testing. But it
mhm.
did work out. We're talking about 18, 19 years ago.
Was it an uphill battle and, like, an educational type sale to the companies that were using spreadsheets to, like, convince some of these technology executives that they needed to evolve their testing, infrastructure and framework to be more robust and, like, have a tool around it? Was it a lot to convince these people, or were they just like, "Oh my god, we need this, and we didn't have this before?"
So I would like to say that I managed to convince a lot of people,
Okay.
but I didn't. Not only I didn't, I realized that I am not a good person coming to a VP R&D or a CIO or CTO and telling them, "Oh, you need testing." Not only was I not a good person, I didn't need to be, because I realized that the best way to get new customers was to find those people who run into the fact that they need to have a better process. Why? You release a couple of faulty releases, or you grow, or you're acquired. There are quite a lot of different milestones that turn people into that realization that, oh God, we cannot continue doing testing as a byproduct or as an afterthought, and we need to get a better testing process. And when you start putting together a process, you realize that, hey, I need a tool. And even today, you know what? It's not even about spreadsheets, but there are many products today. We're not in the late 2000s. There are plenty of products. Practice on the niche of companies who have, let's say, a need for a little bit more sophisticated test management. If you have 3 testers, there are plenty of pretty good tools within Jira you can use. Test management tools within
Mhm,
Jira, but once you have 5 testers, 6 testers, 7 testers, obviously 10 testers, you cannot work with Jira. The same goes if you have 150 test cases, 200 test cases. Go work within Jira, or again, Azure DevOps, something like that. The moment that you go through a higher threshold, and you need a really good solution, and that is where, instead of educating people, we show them how we can really solve their problems. So by finding that niche and working on it, then it's easier not to educate, because I don't think testing is not sexy. And in the best of times, we're one of those professions like insurance. If you hear about testing, that means that something went wrong in the organization,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to have it in any case. So that is why I think that it's easier for us to talk to organizations where they already realize they need something. Okay, that's what we do. There
I
are
love that.
plenty of fish in the sea in that sense.
That reminds me of my two analogies. One is that QA, we are the janitors of the SDLC, right? We're there to clean up all the mess. And then two, I like to say, we're like a funeral home, right? Like you may not want us or you may not want to visit us, but you'll see us eventually, right? You're going to need us eventually sometime. I wanted a better, less morbid analogy, but I do feel like that's fit. You're going to need it
I'm a little
eventually.
bit more optimistic.
It's
I
okay.
like to think that we are the X-ray technicians
Okay.
of the SDLC, in the sense that, well, sometimes the ailment or whatever you have is so obvious you don't really need to have X-rays or MRIs or good exams. Sometimes you need to get a little bit better understanding of what's going on. That's where we come into play. So we are X-ray technicians, MRI technicians that are actually helping the team to release better and on time. Meaning, why work blindly if you can actually know where you're going to be operating?
That's a much better analogy. Yours is much less
I'm
bad.
trying to keep.
I like yours
I'm
better.
trying to be
I like
optimistic
yours.
here.
I like yours. I like it a lot. Oh, who was your first customer at PractiTest,
Oh
and how did you get them?
God. So we started working on a product and we didn't have anything to sell. We started and we created, as I said, it was a moonshining activity. And we started, even we didn't start with the testing module, we started with the bug tracker module. And then we added a test module that was like everything bundled. And we said, hey, we need to have a website. So let's have a website. And we put a website with some pictures. And I remember middle of the week, I got into the office and there was an email waiting for us of someone saying that they had worked with the system and they wanted to buy a license.
Hmm.
And it was this consulting company out of Australia, from all places. And they wanted to buy a license to, I think it was 5, 7 people. The problem was that we didn't have a way of getting money from them, because we hadn't thought that anyone would be willing to pay. We didn't have a mature enough product. So someone was looking to pay. So I remember telling them, yeah, go ahead and work with that. We'll give you the payment options soon. It took us about 2 days to realize that the best way to do it was using PayPal. So we opened a
Mm-hmm.
PayPal account for PractiTest, and that was our first customer. So we were not even ready for them, I think.
I
And
love that.
yeah, people just started coming over.
I mean, people trying to just give you money and figuring out how to accept it, I think, is a good problem to have. I like that problem.
Well, if you think about it, we didn't have a sales team up until about 3 years ago. I was doing sales, and I don't know how to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So people were going, we're just demoing the product, and people saying, "Hey, it's nice." But yeah, up until about 3 years ago, we were literally selling ourselves. It was like the people doing support and success were just making demos and selling the product.
Well, I'm gonna challenge that a little bit and say you probably are a better salesman than you're giving yourself credit for, because you got to the point where you needed a sales team, which means you were doing some founder-led sales stuff that was growing your team and getting you guys in a position to grow. So I mean, as founders, I think we like to say we're not salespeople when, a lot of times we've got some of it inside us.
We're not salespeople, but we're founders, and I try to explain that to people. You have kids, I have kids. And my kids are perfect, and my kids are gorgeous, and my kids are the most underrated kids in the world. And when I'm explaining about my kids through my eyes, then obviously everyone just wants to steal them and grab them for them. I think it's the same when you have an application, especially if you know why you made the stuff that you made. So yes, we have a great product, but I think that I am able to explain not only what we have, but why do we have it and the flows inside of that. So for sure, it is the case. And yes, I think that every single founder has to be a little bit of a salesman for themselves. For even when you're hiring someone, you need
Mm-hmm.
to sell them the product when you're hiring someone. So you have to. I agree with you. You have to a little bit of a salesman. By the
Yeah,
way,
and it took it.
sales is not a bad word if you're
No,
selling
it's
right.
not. It is not. It took me so long to realize that. I mean, so long. It's like you're used to salesmen. You're used to window salesmen and car salesmen,
Yeah,
and you're like,
used
I
car
can't.
salesman. We're not used cars. We're selling value.
You're like, I don't want to be that guy, and so you push it off for so long, and you're like, I don't want to. And then eventually you go, oh, I am a salesman, and I am the one who has to tell people how incredible my kids or this product or whatever is. And you're like, so I totally agree with that. Let's switch gears a little bit. You've written about, mindful testing. What does that actually look like in practice? Did that come from, years of bug triage where you had to find some inner peace so you didn't, jump out the window? Like, what? Tell me about mindful testing. Are you a mindful guy? Are you into meditation in general? Is that kind of your mindset, or is this more specific to a flavor of testing?
So I have a confession to make. I was
Here it comes.
growing up on the 70s, 80s, and 90s. People didn't really know what ADHD was. And as it happened, when my oldest, went to high school, his teacher told us that the kid has ADHD. And we are like, no way. And the whole first grade, we didn't go into that. Only until he went to second grade, we diagnosed him with AD, not even ADHD. And when we
Mm-hmm.
started asking where did he get it from, because we read that it was like something you get from your parents, then the doctor just looked at me and says, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah, what about? You are one of the biggest ADHD people I've seen." And I got diagnosed
Oh,
and I
that's
have that.
great.
So for me, mindfulness I've always tried to find, without knowing what I had it, I try to find ways to concentrate. I mean, sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
hard music, sometimes it's candles, but I found that mindfulness really helps me. So I do it once or twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, in order to be able to just let go of all the noise you have. And if you have ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I did it and I realized how much it helps concentrating and going into that state where it's kind of a zen state. And I try to explain to people, when you're doing good testing and you're a good tester, many times you will see a bug without realizing there's a bug and feel that there's a bug, and it takes you about 3 seconds to 30 seconds just to find where the bug is. So I think that happens. So for me, mindful testing is one of the ways. So I use it personally, but I try to explain to people it can be a technique of improving your testing better.
So we talked earlier a little bit about kind of how you went into management and started worrying about release cycles and cadence and kind of the testing infrastructure. Do you remember when you realized you were better in kind of a lead capacity than maybe, hands-on keyboard doing, QE work all day? Like, is there something about you that you realized was different? Was it just a natural progression? Like, how did you get into leadership from being a hands-on keyboard tester?
I think elimination mostly. I mentioned that I started working in a company and I was the first tester there. And when we hired the second tester about 3 days after I got in, we were still like working together. When we got the third tester, then the manager of R&D said, "Hey, we need someone to be a lead. You started first, so go ahead and lead." And I had no
Mhm.
clue what testing was, but I started leading the testing that I didn't know about. And I think it was by mistake that I went there. I cannot say that I'm the best manager there is. I'm still too much of a hands-on guy. So even when I'm leading something, I will go ahead and do the research and do the stuff. So I think that it's more, there's a very big difference between leadership and management. Leadership is understanding where you want to go and convincing everyone where you need to go and making sure that they trust you on that. Whereas management is a lot of organization. I'm not the most organized guy. So I'm
Mm.
better at finding good managers who work with me and letting them manage. I like working a lot with people. So I think that's one of the reasons that even my job as chief product officer is working with product, working with sales, working with customer success, meeting a lot of customers, and trying to be that pivot that finds all the information and knows how to channel it. I
Mm.
would like to be a better manager. Maybe I can be, but I think that my real added value is being in a lot of places and trying to connect people around it.
Mhm. Well, it sounds like you've kinda nailed the visionary role in the EOS model, if you follow that at all. It's very, you have a lot of great ideas, but you supplement yourself with teams to help get it done, which I think is the kind of the mark of a really good leader. And to that, you've led teams, you've mentored testers, I'm sure you've built a product. What's, one mistake as a leader that ended up teaching you the most?
I think that speaking too much and not listening enough,
Hmm.
especially when you're trying to sell without selling something and you need to show yourself being very secure in what you're doing. which you have to be. Again, imposter syndrome is a real thing, and I think that most of people who don't have imposter syndrome, I wouldn't really trust them because it means that they're not self-aware of what they're doing. But I think that as you start speaking, sometimes you miss out on good advice from people. So
Mm-hmm.
with years, I've started to listen more and challenge myself based on what people tell me, even if it hurts. I think that
Hmm.
especially when it hurts, when someone tells you that you're doing something wrong, our reflex is to explain to them what we did and why it's not wrong, instead of saying, wait a second, let me see it
Hmm.
from your eyes and then try to learn. That is the biggest thing. And again, I can think of a gazillion places during my whole history, in practice, outside of practice, where I could have worked less hard and more efficiently if I could have only listened to people and what they were saying. And I want to believe that I do it better now.
I love that so much. Non-judgmental kind of information intake is a real thing,
By the
man.
way, you are going to be judgmental. The reflex,
Okay.
that I don't know, the first reflex is going to be to say, no, I was right, or I had good reasons for doing that, or you don't
Mm-hmm.
see it my way. But once you learn to take that step back, to keep quiet, to keep that little, I call it the little Joel, who's actually all the time telling you stuff. You tell that little Joel to be quiet, then you can actually listen better and get good advice. Again, not every advice is going to be good, but there's quite a lot
Right.
of good advice that you could get if you keep quiet a little bit more.
If you could whisper one thing into the ear of every tester starting their career today, what would it be?
Don't stop learning
Hmm.
ever. I think that a lot of testers who are right now in their 40s and 50s are afraid of AI, for example, and they see AI as a threat, where they could be looking at it as their biggest accelerator ever.
Mm-hmm.
It happened with automation back in the day. Now it's AI. It used to be agile. I think that as testers, we need to understand that we're providing a service to the development team. And if there are new tools, new methodologies, new anything, then we need to continue learning. And as we grow older, then expanding that virtual toolbox of ours becomes harder.
I
So
love that. I love it so much. I could not agree more. It's a force multiplier.
it
It's not
is.
a
It's
it's not
definitely.
something to be it's not something to be scared of. Be the farmer that uses the tractor, right? Not the guy who goes, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to plant these by hand, right? You want to be using whatever tools to be better at what you're doing. So I completely agree. I mean, I met the CTO of Deloitte at a conference like a couple weeks ago, and he was saying we haven't fired a single developer or QA engineer. We have improved their efficiency by 30% by using these tools, which means we get to get more done. Right? People aren't getting
But
fired. We're using it to enhance them.
but we need to understand that, as you said, it's a force multiplier. If you're doing something wrong, it will be multiplied as well.
That's a great point.
So no, and I see it.
That's a great
I
point.
see it so much. Right now, there's this trend of no code automation, for example. And again, I have, I don't want to, I'm not going to mention anyone specifically, but I think that us as vendors, if back in the day our mortal scene was to sell record replay, oh, you can record the script and then it will play back without doing
Mhm.
anything. People who are saying you can just let AI write your script and it will play seamlessly for as much as possible. No, AI is a force multiplier, but it's a way of it's a shortcut creator. If you're not paying attention, if you're not reading, if you're not understanding what you're putting there, then it will be worse. Than it's not only about testing. I've seen it multiple times, even in practices with developers who go into, I don't know, ChatGPT or any other system to get code. And if you understand what you're getting into, then you get great ideas. If you're going to plug and play it, it will break the system. Okay, and that's why we have
Mhm.
testers. The same goes with testing. So it's a force multiplier that we need to treat with respect.
I love that. With respect. All right. We need to have like 5 of these shows. There's so much we could talk about. Well, God, I love this so much. I mean, look, I love all my guests. I've had some really cool guests on the show, but when I get to nerd out about QA and business and QA tools like all at the same time, it's just I can't tell you how I could have this conversation all day. Let's finish with one question about Joel, not about practice, not about QA. just Joel being Joel, if you could do anything on earth and you knew you wouldn't fail, what would it be?
I would go on a 5-year world tour.
Love that. Where would you go first?
I would go back to Japan. I love Japan.
Okay.
I've been there a number of times, but only on business. And the more I go
Okay.
there, the more that I realize that they're incredibly, I don't know, interesting. So I think I
Okay.
could spend a year in Japan just like walking around.
I would love, yeah, I've never been. I'm dying to go. That's a great one. I would do that tomorrow if I could. And you can do this and wouldn't fail. So you could just go right now. This is a great opportunity for you to do that. So Joel, you're fantastic. I love your story. I love your team. I love the product. If you want to find out more just about QA or just what they heard today, how do they reach you directly?
The best way to reach me is via LinkedIn. Just go to my LinkedIn profile. I think it's the best way. You can also write to me, joel@practice.com. It's when you're one of the founders, it's the simplest emails. But I think the LinkedIn would be my preferred approach.
All right. Well, Joel, you're fantastic. Have a great rest of your week. Go Birds, not Cowboys, and no, don't do it. Oh, there it is. I knew it was gonna. But this is always in the background, so I mean, you can't overtake the Birds with that. But that's fine. Joel, you're awesome. Thank you very much. We'll catch up again soon, and have a good rest of your week. All
Thanks
right.
for
Thanks,
having
Joel.
me, Jay. It was actually awesome.
See you, buddy.